you ever felt that prickle on the back of your neck? That whisper of unease when you're utterly, completely by yourself? Imagine the silence of your home, a sanctuary of peace, suddenly shattered by the undeniable presence of something or someone who shouldn't be there. Tonight, we delve into 4 bone-chilling true stories of individuals who found themselves face-to-face with terrifying intruders while home alone. These aren't just tales of break-ins. They're accounts of unsettling encounters, predatory pursuits, and the horrifying realization that sometimes the greatest dangers aren't just outside your door, but lurking in the shadows, waiting for their chance to get in. Prepare yourself, because after hearing these, you might just find yourself double-checking every lock, every window, every dark corner of your own seemingly safe haven. Midnight Callers, a predatory pact. The soft glow of the streetlights barely pierced the suburban night in Sydney, Australia. Ethan, a 15-year-old, found himself in that familiar state of adolescent solitude, the house quiet around him as the clock ticked past 9 p.m. He'd just stepped out of the bathroom, the echo of the shower still fading, when a sharp, jarring sound cut through the calm. The distinct creak of his front gate swinging open, followed by the agitated, low growl of his dog. A shiver, cold and immediate, traced the path down his spine. Across the hall, through the porch window, a fleeting shadow darted. Someone had just run past, disappearing into the depths of his backyard. Ethan strained his eyes, trying to make out details in the encroaching dusk. The figure was hunched, its silhouette unsettlingly contorted. As it moved, he vaguely perceived sickly pale skin, clothing of darkest black, and long disheveled black hair that partially obscured its face. An intruder, undeniably. His dog, a loyal border collie named Gus, remained at the front door, a low guttural growl rumbling in his chest, eyes fixed on the outside. Since the strange figure hadn't reappeared from the backyard, a chilling certainty settled over Ethan. The man was still back there somewhere. He waited, heart thudding a frantic rhythm against his ribs at the front door. Then, a second figure emerged, walking onto the porch. This one appeared more normal. The man approached the security bars, his presence seemingly less threatening, yet no less unsettling given the circumstances. Their exchange was brief, fragmented by the rising tide of Ethan's fear. "Hey, have you seen my friend?" the man asked, his tone oddly casual. Ethan, his mind racing, found himself replying, "Yeah, I think he's in my backyard." The man then offered a bizarre explanation. "Okay, because I've been following this random guy all over the place. I think he's on drugs and might be dangerous." A sharp jolt of suspicion hit Ethan. "Friend? Random guy?" The words clashed, painting a picture of deception. Without another word, the man walked away, fading into the deepening darkness towards the backyard, presumably to join his unsettling companion. Ethan remembered the back door, also secured with bars and locked, offering a small comfort in the growing dread. He retreated, sinking onto the couch, trying to process the surreal encounter. Barely 2 minutes passed before the normal man reappeared on the porch, now accompanied by the first pale, agitated figure. The creepy guy was pacing, an unnerving, restless energy emanating from him. Ethan, drawn by a morbid curiosity, approached the door again. "Hey, sorry man, I just found him," the second man offered, his voice a strained apology. Then came the chilling request, delivered with an unsettling politeness. "Look, he's really nervous, and he'd like if you unlocked the door and came out here, just so he could see that you're harmless." A cold, sharp pain lanced through Ethan's chest. The creepy man had stopped his pacing. He stood unnaturally still, his eyes fixed on Ethan, a silent, penetrating stare that promised untold dangers. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with unspoken menace. Without a word, Ethan stepped forward, not to open the door, but to push the French door firmly shut. The second man, startlingly quick, lunged, his hand thrusting through the security bars, reaching for Ethan. Terror seized him. Ethan recoiled, slamming the door shut with his foot, the bolt sliding home with a definitive, fortifying click. He called his parents, who in turn alerted the police. By the time the officers arrived, the two men had vanished into the night. The police confirmed Ethan's worst fears, informing him of a break-in that had occurred just down the street less than an hour earlier. The perpetrators were never found, their faces and motives swallowed by the darkness. Looking back, it's clear the first man had slipped into the backyard, seeking an alternate entry point, while his accomplice attempted to lure Ethan out. But what truly disturbs Ethan to this day, a cold weight in the pit of his stomach, is the unsettling realization. They didn't merely want to break in, nor was his presence a deterrent. They wanted him to come out to them, or failing that, to find a way to get to him. In the quiet confines of your own home, the line between safety and vulnerability can blur in an instant. Always trust your instincts, for they are often the silent guardians of your survival. The Phantom Homewrecker, a mother's deception. It was a Thursday night, the kind where the house hums with an almost palpable quiet, amplifying every creak and groan of settling wood. Amelia's mom was working a late shift at the hospital, leaving Amelia in sole command of their home, her two brothers away at college. A few friends had been over earlier for a baseball game and some beers, their laughter and chatter now a distant memory. After seeing them out through the back door, Amelia ascended the stairs, placed the remaining beers in the kitchen fridge, and prepared for bed. She settled into her bed, the soft mattress a welcome relief, but sleep proved elusive. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity, her mind still buzzing. Then, a sound. Faint, unmistakable footsteps ascending the stairs outside her room. A sense of relief washed over Amelia. Her mom was home. She heard a soft cough as the footsteps passed her bedroom door and entered the bathroom. Then, the sounds moved downstairs into the kitchen, a cacophony of clattering cabinets and dishes. Annoyed by the late-night racket and far too lazy to get out of bed, Amelia grabbed her phone and texted her mom, asking her to keep it down. She placed her phone back on her desk, flipping onto her side, trying to coax sleep to return. Suddenly, the footsteps were back, ascending the stairs, quickly this time. Her bedroom door opened, and a figure stepped into her room. The hallway light was off, plunging the doorway into shadow, preventing Amelia from making eye contact. Yet, she saw her mom's familiar silhouette, slightly slouched, standing by the doorway. "Stop making so much damn noise," Amelia muttered, annoyance lacing her tone. When the figure didn't respond, she sat up. Just then, a quiet vibration against her desk announced an incoming text. Given the late hour, Amelia instinctively checked her phone. It was from her mom. The message was brief, devastatingly clear. "I'm not home yet." Amelia's phone slipped from her grasp, tumbling onto the bed. The person standing in her doorway wasn't her mother. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through her, but a desperate primal instinct for survival took hold. "I said I'm sorry," Amelia called out, feigning ignorance, hoping to appear harmless, utterly oblivious to the terrifying truth. The figure remained motionless. Amelia snatched up her phone, her fingers trembling, and frantically texted her mom. "There's someone in the house. I mistook them for you. Call the police right now." Her mom replied, a single word. "What?" Then, the oppressive silence of the room shattered. A voice, crackly and rough, the sound of ancient decay, began to speak. It sounded like a desolate whisper, repeating a single phrase over and over. "Don't know where to go." The voice grew louder, closer, and Amelia realized with a surge of pure horror that the figure was approaching her bed. "Get back!" Amelia shrieked, fumbling blindly for the lamp switch beside her bed. The room flooded with light, revealing a sight that seared itself into her memory. An old woman with white, wiry hair, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her gnarled hands reaching out towards Amelia. The woman continued her unnerving chant, "Don't know where to go," as she advanced. "Get away from me!" Amelia screamed, convinced the woman was about to attack. She scrambled off the bed, lunging for the door, bolting out of the room, and then, with all her strength, held the door shut. Seconds later, she felt the insistent pressure against the door. The old woman was pushing, trying to force her way through. A new sound emerged from behind the door, chilling scream, "I need to get out!" punctuated by frantic banging. Amelia braced herself, putting all her weight against the door, holding the position for what felt like an eternity against the woman's relentless assault. Her phone vibrated incessantly with calls from her mom, but she couldn't dare let go. It wasn't until the insistent knocking of police officers at the front door echoed through the house that Amelia released her desperate grip, sprinting to them. The old woman, with a terrifying burst of energy, rushed after Amelia. As Amelia tore open the front door, yelling for the officers to stop her, they swiftly pinned the woman against the wall. She was cuffed and led to a police car. Amelia recounted the entire harrowing ordeal. Based on her behavior, the police suggested the woman would need to be identified and evaluated for mental illness, a suspicion later confirmed. That night, after the police had left, a cold, hard truth emerged. Amelia had forgotten to lock the back door after her friends left. The woman had simply walked in. This experience has left an indelible scar on Amelia's psyche. To this day, anytime she hears the slightest sound in her room while trying to sleep, her eyes snap open, compelled to scan the darkness to ensure no one is standing on the other side. In the quiet of our own homes, we often assume a fortress of security, but sometimes the simplest oversight can invite the most terrifying darkness within. Always check your locks, for the peace of mind they offer is a shield against the unseen, the unexpected, and the utterly terrifying. The ranch haunting, whispers in the wild. Before settling in California, Marcus lived a life steeped in the vast, isolated beauty of his dad's ranch in Colorado. A sprawling, magnificent property, yet for Marcus, it often felt like the very definition of the middle of nowhere. As the old cartoon, Courage the Cowardly Dog, wisely proclaimed, "Creepy things happen in the middle of nowhere." This was just a saying. It was a recurring reality for their family. Trespassers were not uncommon, a fact that necessitated his father owning 3 different guns. There was even one unforgettable instance where his dad had to chase 2 men off the property with his rifle. The incident Marcus was about to recount unfolded a few years back, in the oppressive heat of a Colorado June night. He was utterly alone. His parents were on vacation, and his little brother was out for the night. The air was thick and still, so he had opened all the windows, hoping to catch a stray breeze. It was late, around 1 a.m., and Marcus was still in the living room, immersed in the blue glow of the TV, when the motion-sensing patio light outside abruptly flared to life. This light, he knew, was triggered only by significant movement, enough to make him immediately assume it was his brother returning home. Still, a knot of caution tightened in his stomach. To be safe, he rose and peered out the window, but saw no one. He pulled out his cell phone, quickly dialed his brother, but received no answer. A flicker of unease, quickly dismissed as youthful pranksters, or perhaps his brother playing a trick, led him to sit back down. Then it began. A sharp, insistent knocking at the front door. Their door had a peephole for good reason. Anyone coming to their remote house had made an effort to get there, and knowing who was on the other side was paramount. Marcus approached, eyes narrowing to the tiny circle, but saw absolutely no one. Ding-dong ditch, he thought. Perhaps some local punky kids, or again, hopefully, his brother. A sudden, overwhelming sense of being watched descended upon him. He pulled the blinds shut, the flimsy fabric a poor shield against the creeping paranoia. He fired off a text to his brother. "If I find out it's you, I'm not letting you in." Moments later, a thunderous bam right behind his head made him vault off the couch. It was a jarring knock at the living room window, followed by what he could only describe as 2 distinct voices. One, a deep male rumble. The other, a higher-pitched female voice, spoke in unsettling unison. "We see you!" His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror and disbelief. He desperately clung to the most wishful thought. It was just his little brother and his girlfriend messing with him. In that moment of escalating fear, it almost made sense. Or perhaps he just needed it to make sense. The insistent banging didn't stop. It moved, echoing from another window, this time in the dining room where he hadn't thought to shut the blinds. From his angle, Marcus could discern two dark figures at the window, their forms indistinct, their faces hidden in the gloom. He didn't linger, didn't dare to truly look. Instead, he bolted upstairs, his feet pounding a desperate rhythm, heading straight for his dad's room, towards the reassuring weight of one of his father's guns from under the bed. His dad had told him exactly where it was, just in case of an emergency. Marcus loaded the rifle, the click of the mechanism a cold comfort, and raced back downstairs to the dining room window. They were gone. With the loaded gun in his hands, a surge of adrenaline replaced the icy fear. He felt a newfound confidence, enough to open the front door and step outside, ready to confront whatever lingering threat remained. He decided on a quick full lap around the house and a check on the cattle. He wasn't a marksman, but the protective instincts for his home and land ran deep, and he was ready to use the gun if necessary. The property seemed clear, the cattle undisturbed. He went back inside, double-checked every door, and finally headed upstairs to bed. For a blessed half hour, peace reigned, shattered only by the chirping of crickets. Then, a disturbing sound ripped through the quiet coming from downstairs, and outside, someone was frantically pounding at the front door downstairs, accompanied by a man screaming at the top of his lungs. Not shouting words, just pure, primal, unadulterated screams. Marcus snatched the rifle from beside his bed, ran to the living room window, pushed it open, and fired a round into the dark night. The screaming and pounding ceased instantly. He heard two sets of footsteps, heavy and hurried, stomp off the wooden porch. And then, only the rhythmic symphony of the night crickets remained. The rest of the night was uneventful. In fact, nothing ever happened again until Marcus moved out. It wasn't his brother and his girlfriend, he learned the next day. His dad, when he heard, expressed his pride that Marcus had protected the property. And Marcus, holding the memory of that night, agreed with his father's gun ownership more than ever. When confronted by a chilling, unknown threat in the isolation of your own space, sometimes the only response is to meet the darkness with an unyielding defense, for your safety and the sanctity of your home are worth protecting at all costs. The Climber, a midnight ascent. The soft light of springtime barely kissed the edges of the night as Maya found herself alone in her house, engaged in the comforting familiarity of a FaceTime call with her friend Jordan. As she paced back and forth in her room, a common habit during long conversations, her gaze idly drifted towards the window. What she saw made her steps falter, then stop altogether. Someone was outside on the street, just standing there, facing her house, facing her window. A deeper, more careful look confirmed her chilling suspicion. He was looking directly up at her window. Maya quickly alerted Jordan on the call, attempting to show her the figure, but Jordan couldn't see him. Her friend's immediate advice was to call her mom and dad. Maya disconnected the FaceTime, her eyes still glued to the man for a few more seconds before finally pulling herself away from the window and going to her bed to call her mom. It was past midnight, and she had clearly woken her up. Her mom, groggy but direct, simply told her to turn off her lights and shut the blinds, assuring her he would go away. Maya followed the advice, plunged her room into darkness, and drew the blinds, but curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of dread, gnawed at her. After a few agonizing minutes, she couldn't resist. She rose, lifted the blinds just enough, and peeped outside. The man was no longer on the street. He had moved to the sidewalk, closer to her house, still staring intently up at her window. A cold wave of fear washed over Maya, solidifying her alarm. This wasn't just a passerby. She called the police. The operator's voice was calm, almost too calm, asking if the man was holding any weapons. Maya confirmed she couldn't tell if he was armed. The operator's next words were deeply unsettling. She was told to ignore him. If he didn't leave within 10 minutes, or if he stepped onto her property, then she should call back. The operator added that a patrol car would pass by her house to scare him off if he was still there. Maya hung up, crawled back into her bed, and called Jordan again. They talked on FaceTime for about 5 minutes while Maya lay in bed. Jordan, ever practical, urged her to check the window again. This time, the man was gone. Maya stood by the window, the blinds now fully open, waiting for the promised police car. After what felt like an eternity, about 5 to 10 minutes of standing there with Jordan on FaceTime, a police patrol car finally appeared down the block. It stopped briefly in front of her house, a spotlight on the side of the car sweeping across her property and a few neighboring ones. The patrol car drove away soon after, confirming the man was no longer on her property. With a sigh of relief, Maya ended her FaceTime call with Jordan and went to bed. 20 long minutes later, as she lay in bed trying to calm her racing heart, a subtle, unsettling sound reached her ears. A creaking, or perhaps a cracking, coming from outside. She pushed herself out of bed and peered out the window, but saw nothing. Again, she returned to bed. A few more minutes passed, and the cracking sound returned, louder this time. Maya looked towards the window from her bed and froze in utter shock. A figure was at her window. Her bedroom was on an upper floor, and suddenly, the creaking and cracking noises made terrifying sense. He had been climbing up the side of her house. Pure terror propelled her to the other window. She screamed, "Help!" over and over, her voice raw, praying her neighbors would hear. Simultaneously, she was back on the phone with 911, frantically telling them to send another car immediately. The man at her window attempted to squeeze through the opening, but seemed to give up when one of her neighbors, alerted by her screams, appeared outside, yelling something. The next time Maya looked, he was gone. According to her elderly neighbor who had rushed to her aid, the man had jumped down and run away down the street. The police arrived once more. This time, Maya provided them with all the information she could, and they assured her they would be patrolling the immediate area all night. Maya didn't get any sleep that night, but she believes that man was scared off for good. This chilling encounter is a stark reminder that sometimes the most persistent threats will defy logic and safety measures, finding unconventional ways to breach the walls we build around ourselves. It teaches us the profound importance of community, of neighbors who listen, and the terrifying resilience of those who mean us harm. Always be vigilant, for true security often lies not just in locked doors but in the watchful eyes of those around us.